What did eating out mean in the 1970s? It wasn't just grabbing a quick bite, it was an experience. The neon lights, the smell of sizzling steak, the laughter echoing from vinyl booths, every meal felt special. Before fast food took over, these places brought families together and filled America with flavor and warmth. So let's turn back the clock and revisit 20 forgotten restaurants from the 1970s we wish would come back. Hit the hype button and let's see how many of these old favorites bring back your best memories. Before there was a Happy Meal, there was Burger Chef, the fast food chain that practically invented it. Born in Indianapolis back in 1954, Burger Chef grew into a nationwide favorite by the early 70s, serving up juicy burgers, crispy fries, and a bit of magic on every tray. At its peak, there were more than 1,000 locations, each glowing with that familiar orange and brown color scheme that just felt like the 70s. They had something called the Works Bar, where you could build your burger any way you liked. More onions, extra pickles, or a big squiggle of mustard that always managed to drip down your hand. And who could forget their fun meals? They were giving out toys with burgers long before anyone had ever heard of a Happy Meal. Families loved it. The food was good, the prices were right, and the commercials made it all look like one big adventure. But like so many others, the chain grew too fast, got bought out, and slowly disappeared. Who else remembers those bright orange booths and the smell of fresh fries coming from the kitchen? Their Big Chef burger was the best. I really miss it. Share your memories in the comments below. Now this one takes me straight back. Arthur Treacher's fish and chips was the best fried fish you could get in the 70s. Sorry, England. It started in 1969 and grew like crazy, with more than 800 locations across the country by the end of the decade. On Friday nights, especially during Lent, you couldn't even find a parking spot. Families lined up outside, waiting for that familiar smell of fried cod and hush puppies to drift through the air. Arthur Treacher himself was a real person, the British actor from Mary Poppins and The Merv Griffin Show. His name gave the place a little class, but the food kept it simple and delicious. Those boxes of golden fish, crispy fries, and hush puppies were pure comfort. And that malt vinegar, it hit your nose before you even opened the lid. Like so many chains, it eventually faded away after big companies took over and cut corners. But there's still one left in Ohio, quietly serving up the same fish and chips after all these years. Man, I can still smell that vinegar and hear the fryers popping. Those hush puppies were perfect, crisp outside, soft inside. If you were lucky enough to eat there back then, tell me what you ordered most. I'd love to hear your memories. If you grew up in the 1960s or 70s, you probably remember spotting that big red barn-shaped building long before you pulled into the parking lot. Red Barn was more than just a fast food place. It looked like something straight out of a postcard from small-town America. Those tall peaked roofs, big glass windows, and glowing lights made it stand out from anything else on the road. Started in 1961 in Ohio, Red Barn became famous for its Big Barney and Barn Buster burgers. Huge, juicy, and cooked fresh. They also served fried chicken, fish sandwiches, and one of the first salad bars anyone had ever seen. You'd grab your tray, fill up your cup, and take a seat by the window while the smell of burgers and fries filled the air. By the early 70s, there were hundreds of Red Barns across the country. But like many others, it didn't last. Bigger chains took over, and most of those bright red barns were sold off or turned into something else. If you ever drive by an old barn-shaped building and feel a little tug of nostalgia, you probably know why. Those were good times. Simple, happy, and full of flavor. Did you have a Red Barn in your hometown? Tell me what you remember most about it. Now here's one that brings back a smile. LUM'S. If you remember this place, you probably remember that smell too. Hot dogs steamed in beer, buttered buns, and a little bit of mischief in the air. Started in Miami Beach in 1956, LUM'S hit its stride in the 1970s when people wanted something a little more relaxed than fine dining, but a step up from drive-thru burgers. The place had a cozy, pub-like vibe. Dark wood walls, red booths, and cold beer mugs that frosted over the second they hit your table. Their famous Ollie burger dripping with special sauce was one of those things you couldn't find anywhere else. You could come in wearing jeans or a suit, sit down with friends, and it always felt right. At its peak, there were hundreds of LUM'S locations across America, but after a series of buyouts and bad management decisions, the brand slowly faded away. By the early 80s, most were gone, but the memories still stick around like the smell of a good grill. Who else remembers those beer-steamed hot dogs and frosty mugs of draft beer? Bonanza Steakhouse was the kind of place that made dinner feel like an occasion. The second you walked in, the smell of steak on the grill and buttered rolls in the oven wrapped around you like a warm hug. Founded in 1963 by Dan Blocker, better known as Hoss Cartwright from the TV show Bonanza, the restaurant carried that same down-to-earth Western spirit. Hearty food, friendly people, and prices that made families feel welcome. Everyone remembers that legendary salad bar. Rows of lettuce, pasta salad, cottage cheese, and every dressing you could imagine. Kids loved stacking their plates higher than they should, while parents finally got a break from cooking. It wasn't fancy, but it was everything you wanted from a night out. By the late 70s, there were hundreds of Bonanza locations across America, and each one had that familiar glow of comfort and togetherness. The food was good, the laughter was real, and the portions were generous, just like the people who went there. Think back to those trays clattering, the sound of the grill, and that first bite of steak after a long week. It wasn't just dinner, it was family time, and that's something you can't put a price on. If Bonanza was a family treat, then Ponderosa was a full-blown tradition. Walking into one in the 1970s meant being hit with the smell of sizzling steak and warm dinner rolls before you even reached the counter. The booths were filled with chatter, the salad bar stretched endlessly, and everyone, kids and adults alike, left with a full belly and a smile. The restaurant took its name from the famous Bonanza Ranch on TV, and it carried that same Western hospitality. The buffet had everything: fried chicken, mashed potatoes, corn, jello, and pudding cups stacked in ice-filled trays. You could load your plate higher than you should and still go back for seconds. For families, it was affordable, filling, and somehow always felt special. By the 1990s, there were hundreds of Ponderosa locations across America, places where birthdays, Sunday dinners, and road trips always seemed to end. The company may have changed hands, but the memories stayed right where they belonged. You can almost smell that steak sauce again, can't you? The laughter, the clinking plates, the soft hum of family conversation. It was simple, it was warm, and it was the kind of comfort that sticks with you for life. SIZZLER was the kind of place that made you feel like you were treating yourself, without needing a special occasion. The smell of grilled steak, baked potatoes, and that famous cheese toast hit you the second you walked through the door. Founded in California, SIZZLER was all about good food at a good price, and by the 1970s it had become a family favorite across America. You'd grab a tray, order your steak, and then head to what everyone really came for: the salad bar. It wasn't just lettuce and dressing, it was an adventure. There were pasta salads, soups, crispy bacon bits, and croutons that somehow always tasted better at SIZZLER. And for dessert, the soft-serve ice cream machine that kids treated like a treasure chest. The meals were simple: Malibu chicken, shrimp, or a perfectly cooked sirloin, but they felt like a feast. Families filled the booths every weekend, laughing, talking, and going back for just one more plate. If you ever tore into that warm cheese bread or loaded your baked potato to the brim, you know exactly why people loved this place. SIZZLER wasn't fancy, it was familiar, friendly, and full of flavor. If SIZZLER was the family dinner spot, then steak and ale was where the grown-ups went to feel a little fancy. Dim lights, dark wood, the glow of a candle on every table. It was the kind of place where you dressed up just a bit, even if it was only for a weekday dinner. Founded in 1966, steak and ale brought a touch of old-world charm to Middle America, giving ordinary folks a taste of what felt like fine dining, without the fine dining prices. The atmosphere was cozy and intimate, with leather booths and a bar that smelled faintly of oak and whiskey. Waiters wore vests, salads came in chilled wooden bowls, and the baked potatoes were the size of a fist. Their steak and ale combo, a tender cut of beef paired with a frosty mug of beer, was a signature dish that summed up everything the restaurant stood for: hearty, simple, and comforting. It became a favorite spot for anniversaries, date nights, and quiet celebrations. Couples lingered over dessert, enjoying a slice of chocolate cake or sipping coffee while soft jazz played in the background. But as the dining landscape changed in the late 1980s, steak and ale couldn't keep up. Today, only a few locations remain, but those who remember still think of it fondly, not just for the food, but for the feeling. You can still picture those dim lights and hear the clink of silverware, can't you? A perfectly cooked steak, a glass of wine, and that easy conversation that only happened when life moved a little slower. Few sights were more comforting on a family road trip than that bright orange roof and blue spire of a Howard Johnson's restaurant. It was a beacon on the highway, a promise of warm food, clean restrooms, and maybe, if you were lucky, a scoop of ice cream before heading back on the road. Founded by Howard Deering Johnson, the chain became a true American icon by the 1960s and 1970s, when it seemed every interstate exit had one. Inside, the booths were bright. The waitresses wore cheerful uniforms, and the menu was full of familiar favorites: fried clam strips, buttered hot dogs on split-top buns, and of course those 28 famous flavors of ice cream. To a kid, that menu was pure magic. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was part of the American journey. Families in station wagons stopped in for breakfast before long drives. Travelers ordered coffee and pie at midnight, and vacationers made memories over sundaes and sandwiches. But as fast food chains like McDonald's and Burger King took over, the sit-down style of Howard Johnson's began to fade. Most closed by the early 2000s, leaving behind only stories and faded postcards. Still, just the thought of that orange roof brings it all rushing back. The hum of the highway outside, the smell of coffee and fried clams, and the sweet reward of a cone after a long day's drive. If you were a kid in the 1970s, the Ground Round was more than just a restaurant. It was a playground where you were actually allowed to make a mess. You'd walk in and see peanut shells scattered across the floor, cartoons like Woody Woodpecker playing on small TV screens, and tables full of kids laughing with ice cream smeared across their faces. It was loud, chaotic, and absolutely perfect. Started in 1969 by the Howard Johnson Company, the Ground Round was one of the first places to blend casual dining with entertainment. Parents could relax with burgers and beer, while the kids tossed peanut shells, munched on popcorn, and shouted over Bingo the Clown, the restaurant's beloved mascot. It had a lively, carnival-like spirit that made every visit feel like a celebration. And who could forget the pay-what-you-weigh promotion? Kids literally stepped on a scale to determine the cost of their meal. A clever gimmick that's impossible to imagine today, but unforgettable for those who lived it. By the late 70s, the Ground Round was booming, with hundreds of locations packed every weekend. But changing times and ownership troubles dimmed its light. Still, if you ever see peanut shells on the floor or hear that old jingle in your head, you can't help but smile. Remembering a time when dinner out meant laughter, cartoons, and pure childhood joy. If this video brought back some memories, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps the channel. Now here's a name that still makes Southerners smile. Minnie Pearl's Chicken. Launched in the late 1960s, it was the brainchild of country comedian Minnie Pearl and businessman John J. Hooker, who dreamed of creating a fried chicken empire to rival Colonel Sanders. For a short while, it actually looked like they might pull it off. Each restaurant had Minnie's smiling face on the sign, complete with her signature hat and dangling price tag. Inside, it was pure Southern charm. Checkered tablecloths, friendly staff, and that unmistakable smell of chicken frying in hot oil. The menu was simple but irresistible. Crispy fried chicken, biscuits, gravy, and sweet tea so strong it could stand on its own. At its peak, there were hundreds of locations opening across the country almost overnight. But the company grew too fast, and soon the dream collapsed under its own success. Within a few years, most of the restaurants were gone, leaving behind nothing but the stories and a few grease-stained memories. If you ever had Minnie Pearl's fried chicken, you know how good it was. Crunchy, juicy, and full of that southern warmth. It might have been short-lived, but folks still talk about it like it was yesterday. There was never another restaurant quite like the KAPOK Tree Inn. Tucked away in Clearwater, Florida, it looked less like a dining spot and more like something straight out of a fairy tale. Opened in the 1950s and booming through the 1970s, it was famous not just for its food but for the experience. A magical blend of gardens, fountains, chandeliers, and southern charm. You didn't just walk into the KAPOK Tree Inn, you arrived. The moment you stepped through the doors, you were surrounded by winding staircases, crystal lights, marble statues, and lush greenery that made you forget you were even in a restaurant. Families would wander the garden paths while waiting for a table, snapping photos under the enormous kapok tree that gave the place its name. The menu was classic comfort dining: fried shrimp, prime rib, baked potatoes, and big slices of cake served on gleaming silver trays. But the real show was the setting. The way the light sparkled on the fountains, or how every meal felt like a celebration, even if it was just a Tuesday night. By the late 1980s, changing taste and the high cost of maintaining such elegance brought the curtain down. Yet for anyone who ever dined there, the KAPOK Tree Inn remains unforgettable. A place where dinner felt like stepping into another world, and every memory still glows in soft, golden light. Before pizza delivery and drive-through slices became the norm, there was SHAKEY'S. The place where pizza night felt like a party. You could hear it before you even opened the door. Laughter, clinking glasses, and that lively ragtime piano echoing through the room. Founded in 1954, SHAKEY'S was America's first pizza franchise, and by the 1970s it was the spot for family gatherings, birthdays, and weekend hangouts. The pizzas came hot and thin, loaded with toppings and bubbling cheese, but what made SHAKEY'S unforgettable were the extras. The crispy fried chicken, and those golden mojo potatoes everyone fought over. You could grab a slice, watch silent comedy films on the wall, and join in the sing-alongs led by cheerful staff who always seemed to be having as much fun as the customers. By the mid-1970s, SHAKEY'S had hundreds of locations across the country, each one buzzing with energy and music. But as trends shifted and new pizza chains arrived, that lively atmosphere began to fade. Still, if you ever spent a Friday night at SHAKEY'S, you remember it. The sound of the piano, the smell of fresh dough, and the joy of sharing a simple meal that somehow felt like the best night of the week. If you were a kid in the late 1970s or early 80s, SHOWBIZ Pizza Place was pure magic. A wild mix of flashing lights, clanging arcade games, and the smell of hot, cheesy pizza drifting through the air. It wasn't just a restaurant, it was an event. The moment you stepped inside, you were greeted by the sound of laughter, music, and the whirring of ticket machines spitting out prizes you couldn't wait to claim. The real stars, of course, were the Rock-a-Fire Explosion, a full band of animatronic animals that played pop songs and cracked jokes while kids sang and danced along. For a generation raised on Saturday morning cartoons, this was heaven on earth. Parents could relax over pizza and pitchers of soda, while the kids disappeared into a world of blinking lights and arcade machines that ate every quarter they had. The pizza itself, maybe not gourmet, but it didn't matter. It tasted like childhood. A little greasy, a little sweet, and somehow perfect after a few rounds of Pac-Man. By the mid-1980s, SHOWBIZ merged with Chuck E. Cheese, and the brand slowly vanished. But for those who were there, nothing compares to that electric, joyful chaos. The birthday songs, the flashing lights, and the feeling that for one night the whole world revolved around pizza and play. Before every town had a dozen pizza chains, there was Pizza Inn, the cozy, no-frills spot that felt like home. Founded in 1958 by two brothers from Texas, Pizza Inn hit its stride in the 1970s, when the family pizza night became an American ritual. You didn't just come for a slice, and you came for an evening. Inside, the red and white checkered tablecloths, the hum of conversation, and the flicker of jukebox lights made it feel warm and familiar. You could smell the dough baking before you even sat down. Kids filled their cups with cola from the fountain, while parents shared stories over a pitcher of beer. And when the pizza finally arrived, hot, bubbling, loaded with toppings, it was always worth the wait. Pizza Inn was one of the first to offer a buffet-style setup, a dream for any hungry kid. Long tables lined with pizza after pizza, pepperoni, sausage, veggie, and the occasional experimental creation that everyone grabbed just to try. At its peak, Pizza Inn stretched across small towns and cities alike, the kind of place where high school teams went after games and first dates happened over a shared pie. Though many locations are gone, the memories remain fresh, laughter echoing off tile floors, the scent of garlic butter, and the comforting feeling that for a few bucks you could fill your belly and your heart at the same time. You can almost see it now. A family laughing over a booth, kids fighting over the last slice, and an old song playing on the jukebox. Simple times, good food, and memories that still taste warm today. Still with us on this nostalgic journey? Drop a yes in the comments so we know you're enjoying it. Back in the 1970s, Sambo's was one of those places where breakfast just felt right. You could smell the bacon and coffee before you even walked through the door, and the sound of clinking dishes and friendly chatter filled the air. Founded in 1957 in Santa Barbara, it grew quickly across America, known for its pancakes stacked high and prices that didn't hurt your wallet. The walls were lined with bright cartoon murals from the children's book, The Story of Little Black Sambo. Innocent to many back then, but later a source of controversy that overshadowed the restaurant's success. For a while, though, it was the go-to spot for early risers, families after church, or truck drivers looking for a hot meal before hitting the road again. Sambo's was famous for big breakfasts, pancakes with syrup that pooled on the plate, golden hash browns, and eggs cooked just the way you liked. The waitresses called you Han, and you always left full. By the 1980s, changing times and public pressure brought the chain to an end. But for those who remember, the memories stick. A warm booth, a steaming cup of coffee, and a breakfast that started your day with a smile. In Baltimore and across Maryland, mornings once began with the comforting clink of cups and saucers inside a white coffee pot junior. It wasn't glamorous, and it didn't try to be. That was its charm. With its glowing neon sign promising good food fast, this little diner chain became a second home for locals, truckers, and early risers who wanted hot coffee, hearty breakfasts, and a familiar face behind the counter. The smell hits you the second you open the door. Fresh coffee brewing, bacon sizzling, and maybe a hint of toast browning on the griddle. The booths were vinyl and cracked in all the right places, and the waitresses called you Han without even thinking about it. For a few dollars, you could get eggs, pancakes, or a slice of homemade pie and sit as long as you liked. In the 1960s and 70s, White Coffee Pot Jr. was part of Baltimore's daily rhythm, a gathering spot where construction workers, families, and retirees shared the same tables and the same stories. But as fast food drive-thrus took over, those long, easy mornings started to fade. Today, only a few traces remain. But for many Baltimoreans, the memory of a steaming mug at White Coffee Pot Jr. still feels like home. Warm, simple, and brewed just right. Before Marriott became a household name for hotels, it was known for something much humbler, a chain of family restaurants called Hot Shops. Founded in 1927 by J. Willard and Alice Marriott, it was a local favorite around Washington, D.C., and by the 1970s it had turned into a beloved American tradition. The best part? You didn't even have to leave your car. Early on, Hot Shops was famous for its car hop service, trays clipped to rolled down windows, root beer floats in frosted mugs, and waitresses in neat uniforms balancing burgers, fries, and the restaurant's famous Mighty Mo double-decker burger with its secret sauce. Inside, the booths were cozy, the pies were homemade, and every meal felt made with care. By the 1970s, many Hot Shops had grown into full family restaurants where the food was hearty, and the service always came with a smile. Families stopped in after Sunday service, teens cruised through on dates, and regulars never had to tell the waitress their order. She already knew. You can almost hear the sizzle of the grill and the clink of coffee cups again, can't you? Simple food, friendly faces, and that small town feeling right in the middle of a busy world. That's what made hot shops unforgettable. If you ever cruised down a main street in the 1970s, you probably saw him. That smiling, pompadoured boy in red and white checkered overalls, holding up a giant double-deck burger like a trophy. Bob's Big Boy wasn't just a restaurant, it was an American landmark. From California to Michigan, that cheerful mascot was a symbol of good times, full plates, and late-night laughter. Inside, the booths were lined with chrome and vinyl. The milkshakes came in tall, frosted glasses, and the waitresses called everyone "sweetheart." Families stopped by after church, teenagers filled the parking lot on Saturday nights, and car hops delivered burgers and fries straight to your window under the glow of neon lights. The Big Boy Burger, with its special sauce, shredded lettuce, and double patties, became a national favorite long before fast food went corporate. By the mid-1970s, Big Boy restaurants were everywhere, each regional chain carrying its own twist on the name: Bob's, Frisch's, Shoney's. But the heart of it all was the same. And even now, a few Big Boys still stand proudly, serving up nostalgia with every burger. That first bite, the sound of old jukebox tunes, the laughter of friends in the next booth. For so many, Bob's Big Boy will always be a taste of classic Americana, wrapped in red checks and happy memories. Before fast food and drive-thrus ruled America, there was the Woolworth's lunch counter, the beating heart of every main street. It was never fancy, but it didn't have to be. You'd step in from the bustle of downtown, take a seat on one of those shiny red stools, and hear the comforting sounds of clinking dishes, sizzling bacon, and the low murmur of friendly conversation. For decades, and well into the 1970s, Woolworth's lunch counters were where America paused. Office workers grabbed coffee on their break, mothers treated their kids to grilled cheese and chocolate milkshakes, and teenagers shared fries after school. The menus were simple: sandwiches, soups, pie slices, and milkshakes thick enough to stand a spoon upright. But somehow, everything tasted better sitting there under fluorescent lights, watching the world go by through the store windows. These counters weren't just places to eat, they were places to connect. Friendships started there, first dates happened there, and sometimes history was made there too. By the late 1980s, as shopping malls and fast food chains took over, the lunch counters quietly disappeared, taking a piece of small-town America with them. Today, a few of those red stools still sit in museums, polished but empty. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.